Welcome back. In this video I'm going to be teaching you about some general navigational techniques in Linux. So the most common thing that you're going to be doing in the Linux command line interface is just moving around. And well, let me give you some context for that. So this is a graphical user interface. You've seen this sort of stuff before, and if I click somewhere, we all understand that I'm in a new location now. So right now I'm on the C drive, and if I click into this Minecraft server folder, you'll see that now I'm in this Minecraft server folder. And that's how we navigate with a graphical user interface. And it's the same general concept. It's the same concept in the Linux command line. It's just that you don't see it all in this pretty way right in front of you. So the first command I'm going to show you is pwd, which stands for print working directory. So in the same way that in a Windows environment, right now I am in this Minecraft server directory. This is my current working directory right now, C drive : Minecraft server. In the same way that I'm there, in Linux, if I type pwd, this is telling me where I am right now. It's just not doing it in a big graphical sort of way. So it's saying that I'm in /home/student/zh1 fdr. So this is the chapter 1 directory that I'm in right now. So that's where I am. So now that I know where I am, well, how do I move? Well, there's a different command called cd, and that stands for change directory. So remember, in a graphical user interface, I might double click on this folder in order to go there. It's the same process. In Linux, I'm going to go cd, and this particular command takes in an argument. So when commands take in arguments, we separate them by spaces. So if I do space, I now need to tell the command where do I want to change directory to. So I'm going to change directory to the root directory, which is just a slash. The root directory is the highest point in the file system. So there is nothing beyond the root directory. It is the end. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so if I cd root and then I do pwd again, this will print my current working directory, which is now the root. So this is telling me that yes, I have successfully moved to the root directory, and that's where I am right now. I'm now going to type in clear, which just clears the terminal, and that just makes it a bit nicer. I just like doing that. Okay, so we're in the root directory now. So what good is all this moving around if we don't actually know what stuff is where we are right now? So in the same way that we can view stuff in a GUI and we can, see like a list of folders, how do we do that in a terminal? With this wonderful command called ls, which stands for list. So if we do that, we are now getting a list of all of the files and directories that are in my current working directory. So this is all the stuff that's in the root directory. And now commands will take in arguments, as you saw before with the cd command. I did cd and I did a slash, which that was my argument that I was putting in. But some commands will also take in what's called an option. So an option is something that will change the way that a command is executed. And different commands will have all sorts of different options. So ls has this option that it's called a, and the way that we specify options is by putting a dash, and then we say whatever option it is we want. So ls and space dash a will run the ls command with the a option. And the a option stands for all. So there's actually a very slight difference between the running of these two commands. You'll see that ls all has actually included this dot and this double dot, whereas ls hasn't. So what is a dot and a double dot? Well, this is really cool, and I recommend that you pay close attention to this, because this will save you so much, oops, what am I doing? This will save you so much headache later on if you understand this concept. dot is representative of the current working directory. So if I go cd dot, absolutely nothing will happen because that is saying change directory to the current working directory. Now double dot is representative of the directory above my current directory. I'm in the root directory right now, and there is no directory above the current root directory. So if I do cd double dot, we're just going to stay where we are. But to illustrate this better, I'm going to change back to my home directory and change into the chapter 1 folder. So I'm back in the chapter 1 folder. Don't worry about the stuff that I just did. I'll go into detail about that later. General gist of it is I'm now in the chapter 1 folder. We can tell because if I do pwd, you can see /home/student/ /ch1, I'm actually there. And so if I do cd double dot, you'll see, and now I do pwd, you'll see that I have moved up a directory. I've gone from inside the ch1 folder to now just in the student folder. So what we're talking about right now, this dot and this double dot, those are what we call relative directories. They're relative because they don't exist on their own. They're relative to where we are right now. So the dot will not always be the same directory. It depends on where we are right now. And the double dot will not always be the same directory. It depends on where we are. So these are relative. But there are also some absolute things in Linux. For example, the root directory, which is a slash. No matter where we are in the system, that will always be the same. That will be the root directory. And when we're specifying file paths, we can specify them as relative paths or as absolute paths. Now, when we do pwd, that is giving us an absolute path. And the way that we know it's an absolute path is because it starts with the slash, which means it is telling us this path from the root directory. No matter where we are in the system, the root directory is in the same place. So we can say that this is an absolute path because no matter where we are, it doesn't matter, it's the same thing. It's unmistakable. But we could use a relative path to illustrate this same location. So, how can I show this? Okay, so if we wanted to get a path to the chapter 1 directory, we could do that in two ways. One way is that we would go /home/student/ch1, right? So that right there is an absolute path to our chapter 1 directory. Or the relative path would simply be ch1fdr because it is relative to where we are currently located. We could also type that as /ch1fdr, which would be saying inside the current directory ch1fdr. That would be useless, but we could do that. We could even make it even more complicated and a waste of time by going /student/ch1fdr, which is basically saying inside the directory above the current directory, go into student, which is the current directory, /ch1fdr. So relative paths are cool. They're useful if you just want to, move yourself around the file system really quickly. But where you run into trouble with relative paths is if you're going to create a script, for example, and then maybe you'll move the script to another location, and then all of your relative paths aren't going to make sense anymore because they relied on the location they were in. And we can solve that problem by using absolute paths. But it is not worth using absolute paths all the time, especially if all you want to do is, go to a different location. Like imagine if we used an absolute path to change into the ch1 directory right now. That would be long and ridiculous, but we don't need to do that. We can just go cd ch1fdr, and now we're in there. Super easy. And I can leave that directory by going cd double dot really quickly, which gets me back out. Or I could do a massive absolute path, but that would be a waste of time. So that's paths. There's also this one other thing which is pretty cool. and it's this tilde symbol. It's called a tilde, a little squiggly line. So if I go cd tilde, the tilde is representative of my home directory. And this is great because sometimes you'll be in the depths of the system and you'll have no idea where you are and you'll be disorientated, and you can always use the tilde to get home. So cd tilde will take you back to your home directory, which is /home/student. Remember, student is the account that we're logged into. So that's why, that's where we are. And that's paths. So you'll often need to give paths as arguments to certain commands. So maybe if you want to copy a file, for example, you'll need to tell it the path of the file that you want to copy. And if you're going to do a command like that, it usually makes a lot more sense to do, well, it depends on where the file is. But if the file is like in your current directory, then you're just going to want to do a relative path, you know, so it's easy for you. Or if the file is really, really far away and it's confusing to figure out how to get there from your current directory, then you might do an absolute path. So it's completely up to you to make it's the same. It has the same result, but it's really helpful in terms of saving time to know how to use relative and absolute paths to your advantage.